down, down, back, back, down, back, down, back, back, down, down, back, back, down,
I'll write you a tragedy.
At crossroads, come to save our lives. Don't hide. All I hear is like a million, billions sent by strange lands. Each times, no roads, driven to the fringes. There's no one alone. Futures unknown. Let me don't know how to see myself. Let me don't know how to see.
How are you doing, my friends? Thank you so much. You're the first show. I'm excited to do this. First, I want to breathe and now work tricky things. Here. So sorry for the terrible little introduction here. Hopefully things will be better from now on. I'm going to get my mood lights going. Ah. Oh. Actually, like, wanting to discuss various things to explain, how I got to the point where I'm at, because I was an atheist for 28 years. I like to tell this that I heard all these nice things about Jesus. I went into the church. I saw a guy hanging on a cross, clearly suffering. And I turned to my mother and I said, "Who's that?" And my mom went, "That's Jesus." And I said, he sounded like a really nice guy. And I sat there looking at Christ on the cross, and I just decided that that was there to frighten me, and that it was a very odd choice that they would make of how they were depicting their Savior, somebody who was teaching something so wonderful, and yet the thing we remember about him, the focus of Passion of the Christ, is his suffering. And for me, that just seemed like some sort of terrible distortion of the truth. And I was very anti-religion very early on. I can remember being told I was going to hell in school. I'm not like a really sweet guy, but it was just sort of because I wasn't saved and I had no interest in being saved, which I just thought was like, what an arbitrary thing. Now I have a little bit better understanding of where that person's coming from, and my journey to everything that I'm going to talk to you about, on the show, is really a journey of me coming to understand all of the other perspectives that exist and not discounting them the way that I was in my atheist mind, reading all of my American books designed to program me in a very certain way. I promise you, they are. The invisible and insidious hand of things is a real thing. It's a real thing, and well, let's see. We'll start from the beginning before we get there. I was tested as a genius as a child. I don't like school. I got B pluses without trying. I did very good on my SATs without really trying. I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to make art and stories, and I'm an English major. I was very good at writing. I'm fabulous at writing. I've studied very hard to be so. I'm a studious person. I like to study things. I went to college for a little while, but I got hired out of college for what I was ultimately forced to go to college for, which was broadcasting. I got hired by Viacom, and I've been working ever since. You know, in the broadcasting business, having footage of you doing broadcasting is better than the school. So, and it so often is the case, the school is not quite all it's cracked up to be, and a lot of the people working in schools don't know what the hell they're talking about because they don't do the thing, and actually doing the thing and thinking about doing the thing are two very different things often. So I work in a lot of different industries, lots of different fields, and whether it's all the great comic book works or all the great comedy works, because I love comedy, or sculptors and things for toys, because I'm into that kind of stuff or whatever. But whatever I happen to get into, I get very into it. And the same thing goes for information. When it comes to real life information that matters, I have always been looking. And there was a lot of things that I was on the path of discovering and looking at very weirdly before my life changed. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I was always reading books about, what's really going on, biographies and things like that. Like people who think Bill Gates is perfect. Like, for me, I read the Steve Jobs biography like a long time ago, and there is enough damning evidence to say otherwise. That he is not a good guy at all in that book. So people are younger or miss the book or whatever it might be, and or forget or have a short memory, but I don't. I remember things. And and for me, I'm like, you're not going to see me nailing out a whole bunch of details about this thing or that thing, unless I'll pre-write something down sometimes or whatever. I'm going to come in, treat this like a class. But so much of what we're talking about and what we're going to be talking about are just concepts, because we are living in a giant mind, and that is probably this third episode where we're going to talk a lot about living in a giant mind. So I was on the scent of corruption. I remember I kept reading books and I kept going, wow, this is like some crazy happening here. What happened here? Because either this just kind of happened to slip through the cracks, or this represents a system of corruption that I don't want to even begin to understand. That was a long pattern for me until maybe a decade ago now, when all of a sudden I realized, hey, wait a second. This is like the 1,000th book I've read where I finished it and went, holy crap, what a 1 in a bazillion chance of this ever happening, unless we're under a system of corruption, the likes of which I can't even understand right now, which was the case before. Now I understand so much of all goes down. The mastery of being able to absorb a lot of information is courage to not necessarily always finish a thing and to jump to the parts that you really want to understand. Courage to trust your intuition of what you're being drawn to, because there's a natural magnetism to the things that you want to know. And me, I've always had a lot of courage to sort of just like, if I felt like I got everything that I was supposed to get from that book, I move on, and to the other book. If I feel like the book fell on the floor and it's at this chapter and I'm very interested in that information, okay, I'm gonna read that. So I'm really easy to get to as far as the other side of things is concerned. Once I opened myself, I became insanely easy to. And the path of knowledge that I've been on for the past decade and change now has been swift and meaningful and difficult, but I think worthwhile at the end, as most journeys are. I've been listening to a lot of Bashar, who is a channeler from an alien collective consciousness that's talking to people. And he was talking about us making our lives more like a hero journey. And you'll have to let me know if I end up painting at all a picture of this hero's journey as I talk about what happened to me. So I was poised in a lot of ways to do a lot of things. And my expectations, I shouldn't even say my expectations, my goals and my aspiration were usually so high that no matter what I achieved, I was sort of like, damn it, I failed. To other people, it seemed like I was cruising along pretty good. But to me, I was like, damn it, it's not happening. I had gone through a real depression after I finished Rock the Cradle, which was a reality show I did, which was the children of rock stars and a battle of the bands, and to see who had the child's talent. I came second place. Usually when I mention this, I go, when I lost Rock the Cradle, you know, and like some people have pointed out, like, you can't second place. Oh, yeah, no. It feels like I lost. But it really did. It felt terrible, and I was about to quit music because voices were going so well for me. My other careers were going very well for me. And I do a lot of things. I make comic books. I do voiceovers. I make a lot of music and place it in television and commercials and stuff like that. And I host television shows and things like that. So I stay busy within the industry. And then I have lots of friends and family who are in the industry, so I get to like intermix with them and their friends and understand some of the stuff that they're doing and what they're going on. Like my best friend Christian is in the fashion industry, and he does all of clothes for Kevin Christiana. And you know, in the end, I've been friends for a very time, so I have an understanding about what goes on over there. And you know, and this is the thing, when you're in this space for a long time, a lot of practical reality comes around. So I had suffered from anxiety my entire life because I got hit by a car when I was like 11, and I pushed it out of my mind that I'd been injured, and I decided not to tell anybody, basically. I ended up getting taken off my bike by some Good Samaritan. They brought me to the hospital anyway because I had some, I had to get stitches on my head. But I basically said I was fine, everything's fine, and I never took care of anything. This caused long-term like scoliosis in my body and a whole bunch of other things. And I'm an athlete. I've played contact sports my whole life, and I was sort of like wrenching and twerking, not twerking, but twerking my body in really bad ways. This, by the time I was 30, would come to be chronic pain every day. But it took me a long time to know this. But the anxiety ultimately, like, you know, this pain made me very sensitive. And I was just walking around very sensitively all the time. And it was because I was in all this pain, and this pain was giving me anxiety because I couldn't think straight because I was in a lot of pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, just different things, and I wasn't paying attention to what it was. So it was really not a wonderful life for a while, the way I was living it. And one day, my brother came to me and he said, I think that maybe you should try some marijuana. And he and my brother Shane, who were 7 and 5 years younger than me, I was 28 years old, but I just decided to start socially drinking because I felt that not drinking was making people feel judged, and it was like hurting my comic book career with editors, because like I wasn't somebody who they could invite to the bar, and that was like a lot of where so much of the work was being done, and people were hired at the bar. So I was like, fuck, you know, maybe I should start drinking, pick a drink, because I never liked the taste of alcohol. I still think alcohol is yucky, but I will drink socially. And then my brother Cody was very like, oh my God, because I was so straight edge, atheist and straight edge, and sort of like a little bit of a dick about it sometimes. My spirits are coming through to tell me that yes, I was a dick about it sometimes. I was an atheist, and a lot of us atheists were dicks. And it's not that we're such dicks, is that we're like, everybody seems to be fighting over this religion thing. It really seems to be causing a lot of unrest on the planet. I bet if we could all just like come to like a basic understanding of what the universe is and what life is, maybe we could get along. And like a frustration because it's like, it seems like so many people holding on to so many dogmas is really what's causing all this like clash. And there's a lot of truth to that. And it's why I think that as a reminder of spiritual wisdom, which is really what I am, I'm not asking you here to go on this journey with me and have me be your teacher. This is information that you know. I went out and I found it. And, I'm what you would call a psychic intuitive. And that means that, like, as long as nothing is in the way of my bliss and, me being in the flow of things, I can just find the right things all the time. My ex-wife used to be like, how do you do it? And I was like, what do you mean? How do I do what? She's like, how do you go to the supermarket and like you come with things you've never tried before and everything you get is awesome? and I said, well, because I'm a psychic intuitive. And when I'm like, vibe, and I'm like, I'm going to the supermarket, I will come home with like a whole bunch of things that like you never tried before, but that's amazing. And so often too, for myself, I'll be like, yeah, I've tried this before. I'm like, I don't know why I got this. And I'm like, oh, it looks amazing. Or like if I don't like it, it'll turn out like if my roommate loves it. And I'm like, somebody would love it. but it really like, that's my gift. And it's a wonderful gift for finding information, for getting to the next island of information that I have to go to. And there's a lot of that started to happen when I smoked marijuana for the first time. I realized pretty quickly that it was none of the things that I thought it was. I had so many judgments about drugs because I didn't do them for 28 years. I was like, drugs. I'm a drug free kid. I was like a dare kid and I like meant it. It's funny. And when I did marijuana, I was like, wow, this was not at all what I imagined it would be. Or at least for me, it was not what I imagined it would be. It was very positive for me. It was very, because I was in pain all the time, marijuana helped me relax and helped me to settle myself down in a way that I had never really been settled before. And it also helped me to settle my mind because I'm very energetic and I think a lot. And all the crazy thoughts that I would have all the time would block me from often, what I need to see and how I need to see things, how I need to look at things. So I began to use marijuana regularly as a tool for keeping myself steady and really like getting my mind right. And it really changed so much of the way I was doing things for the better. Again, I didn't understand yet. I was in a lot of pain, and that was what was ultimately like holding me back. But this was huge. It changed my life. And I was able to work just as hard as I used to work, even though like for some reason I was tired and like all these different things. And I didn't realize I had brain damage in an area of my brain that prevented me from getting REM sleep. And REM sleep is very important, for healing your body, for one. And I was a little damaged and I wasn't properly looking at these things. So I smoked on and off or whatever, for a couple years before I remembered that Steve Jobs had said that he would not have created Apple computers if not for an LSD trip in college. And I was just sort of, I found that a little bit when I was younger. And I said, well, because I respected him very much as a thinker. I just saw the way that he thought was very different than other people. And he came to be a hero of mine pretty early on. And I was like an Apple first adapter. I loved all that. My God, the Apple sucks now. But what you gonna do? I still have the same podcast. Still use all this Apple stuff, even though it's not. It's so funny. But he said if not for an LSD trip in college, he would not have invented Apple computers. And for me, that was a huge, huge thing to say. Apple computer, like that was his brilliance that I thought he had, and he was giving credit to it, to this LSD trip. So when the marijuana had gone so well for me, I started researching LSD and I started researching psilocybin mushrooms, because psilocybin mushrooms just sort of kept coming up alongside me. And like all the places I would look at LSD, they would be right there. And I just liked the sound of the psilocybin mushrooms better because they were natural. They were mushrooms. And so I decided I was going to do the mushrooms. So one day when my kids were out and my ex-wife was away visiting family in New York, I did the Terrence McKenna recommended Superman dose of mushrooms. To say that this experience blew my doors off is the biggest understatement I can tell you. I was not some stupid kid getting high on mushrooms. I was a frequent meditator, somebody trying to change his life for the better. I was having great difficulty with like sleep and, you know, a couple different areas, you know, the anxiety that I was controlling with my marijuana use or whatever. And little did I know, a terrible depression that I had been under since the Rock the Cradle thing, ultimately, because I had planned to leave music, and I had kind of a really good attitude about leaving music, and then the call for Rock the Cradle, which I had gotten 2 previous times over the course of 5 years, I think it was. They like reached out to me. Like the first time they reached out to me was 5 years from when they finally reached out to me, and ultimately I was cast, and like that it went like really fast in like the 3rd time. Part of the reel for years, and they didn't even think I was going to do anything particularly. Like it was very obvious they didn't think I was like going to be a factor on the show. And then after they saw the first episode, they were like, "Jesse may be something that we have to address." And then they made me the bad guy, and I thought somehow I was going to overcome this stupidity that they were putting on me, but I did not. There's probably no way for me to have. When I lost the show, I really was a little rudderless. Larry Rudolph, who was Britney Spears' manager, was this close to managing me, and that was like a long consideration sort of before he finally went like, I just don't think that like I'm like in the right position to do things that like you need to do. Because I had gotten rid of my manager before this thing, it left me kind of languishing in a place where I didn't have representation. I'm not really good at being my own representation. I don't sing my band because I'm like cool with people and stuff. But I just like, it's always weird selling yourself, selling your work and whatnot. Like when you're really an artist, like you like people to be able to like discover what you've done and be like, this is amazing. I like this. And then you go, yay, people like this. Awesome. I feel good. So I was in a depression, and it's funny because I was able to very quickly walk back on this depression thing and realize a couple things about what had caused my depression. Beyond just this thing, or rather, I shouldn't say what had caused it so much as signs that I'd been going through it and spiritual messages that I was getting that I ignored because I was an atheist who didn't believe in this stuff. Case in point, I was in Sedona, and this lady came in, and she went, "Oh my God, my daughter needs to read your aura." And I didn't believe in anything like that, but I wasn't a jerk. So as I said, like, oh, of course, I shouldn't read my aura. Oh, no problem. And the aura reading was really interesting. I think I went the next day, and this lady like looks at me, tells me that my aura is green, basically, is like kind of a yellow green all through it. And she tells me what it means. And she didn't say I was depressed, but she described very much so what I had been going through for at least the past like 3 months, and it definitely lingered beyond this. And then she took a picture of my aura, and it looked like what she described, and she described it before the picture using this curling photography thing. Atheist me, I would have had some, this is some bullshit that the bullshit people use to bullshit you. Yes, it's a bullshit machine. That's really what I would have told you. Um, and then she hands me a book that she wrote, just like this little book. She gives it to me, like, for the cost of the thing. Like, you get this little book, and the book is all about the auras and like the colors and what they mean. And obviously, she hadn't just written the book in the past 5 minutes. Like, she had written that book, then seen me, saw my aura, told me what it looked like. Even though I can't see the aura, nobody else that I've ever met can see an aura, but she did, and then took a picture of it to show me that it looked exactly like what she said it looked like. And not only that, I'd written a song called Green with a album called Blacklight District, which Image Comics put out this comic book and music project, and each song had a comic book that went with it. And actually, this song Green, I called up Jason Pearson, who was an artistic idol of mine, and I knew that he was, I don't want to put labels on it, but like a manic depressive. He was dealing with a lot of depression, and he understood what I was going through depression-wise, and like I knew the song was about depression, but it was all about the Hulk. But I realized it wasn't about the Hulk; it was about me. It was totally how I felt. It was like completely how I felt, and the song was green, and my aura was green, and it was because I was depressed, because I was like jealous of like other people seemed to be like happy in the world, and like I was not happy, even though I was doing my best to add happiness to the world. So to other people, it seemed like I was very happy, but I wasn't happy. I was very not happy, and that's been something that I've really struggled with. Like I love to give happiness, but like I don't really leave any for myself. And it's been a journey for me, having to learn how to love myself as I love my children, which comes really easy to me. But loving yourself like you love your children can be very hard. I remember the first time my friend told me that. A friend of mine, Michael Zinn, shout out to Michael Zinn, said, "No, I had been told, or I thought, I forget if it was his idea or somebody else's, but that you'd love yourself the way you love your children." I was like, "What? Oh my God." Like, I feel so far away from that. I'm like come on, I'm okay. Like it's like really hard to. Ooh, it doesn't feel good necessarily, because of like all these weird ideas that people have put in our place. And we're going to get to talking about all these things as you come through. This is going to be the first and like the last time I talk specifically about like my whole story, even though I will give examples and stuff when I find them as we talk about things. But I really want this show to be information focused and about changing the way you think, because that's the key. That's the key to everything. If you can change the way you think about life, about everything you're going through, everything that you're doing, you can create alchemy, which is where you really transmute the thing. And not enough people understand that ultimately it's a perspective. Hot and cold is not two things, it's one thing. It's temperature. All things that seem dual are ultimately one thing. And because of the nature of the one thing, when it comes to the mind, there's always a perspective that you can have that can kind of slice the thing down the middle and cut it down to size. Whether you're even just going, oh, look, this terrible situation, like the other day, I was, here. And I'll tell you, I'm at the very end of my journey into who I will be shortly. And just, I was stricken in bed, and my sciatic nerve pain was, I've never experienced anything like it. I couldn't move 6 inches to the left, 6 inches to the right without setting it off. I'm sneezing, I was coughing. I'm just seizing in bed with this nerve up my back. And I don't want to bother my friend, and my children aren't in the house, and I don't have a girlfriend, who lives with me. And I'm like, this is awful. I'm all by myself. What a terrible experience. And well, already from, here I am maybe 3 weeks later, I can tell you, despite everything about it, that was a nightmare. Like within 2 weeks later, within 3 weeks later, I realized that it really like strengthened me, like something mighty. from beneath me, because I was like got angered. I felt like I hadn't done enough to take care of myself, and could have done more, and that I was determined to make sure that I did more. Because it was extra frustrating because I had started doing things to take care of myself, doing yoga and doing qigong, and to a certain degree, this and getting a little sick over the weekend. Where I just barely set it off. I was sitting doing my other radio shows, my podcast, which I'll tell you about if you're a geek like me. Every Wednesday, I do a show called Geek Alive. I do it in the afternoon now as a live stream, just like this, same time as this, like 12 and 3 Pacific and Eastern. And then on Sunday night, I do it with my best friend, Aaron Sparrow, who's a long collaborator in the comic book industry. He's written, he wrote, or I should say, most recently wrote an episode of Young Justice for Greg Weisman, and he's worked as an editor, and he's amazing. So Sunday nights, and he and I are gonna have guests really soon. Cool show. And then Monday nights at the same time, that one, which is like 12, or no, sorry, it's like 8 and 11 Pacific and Eastern. And that one is All Your Favorite Bands Suck, which is just a focus on all of my favorite bands, all the bands that I think deserve like an extra light shine upon them. Anyway, you can check those out. I'm gonna make a cute little commercial that'll get put through like my podcast and some of these things soon, so like I don't have to do it myself every day. Anyway, so when I took these mushrooms, I immediately realized that I had been depressed, really depressed. And I was holding back on being myself. I had like all these like sort of like determinations I had made about all these different things. I kind of saw it in my mind as a music board, like where there's a mixing board. And I saw all these different things. It was like how I felt about dogs, how I felt about cats, how I felt about turtles, how I felt about, like, it was like how I feel about things. I was like, ooh, I feel all sorts of ways about things. And but the mushrooms like sort of like snapped me into a balance about it. And I felt like, okay, wait a second, I found a little crazy. Like, oof, all these things are just things. And all of a sudden I saw things for what they were. It was very, very, very powerful. Saw things for what they were. And I was immediately filled with gratitude. I got this tattoo that says "thank you" shortly after. Filled with gratitude. I was very upset with my parents about a whole bunch of different things. But the amount that I loved them outweighed all of the upset that I had for them. I was upset, but upset was little and love was infinite. And that's the other thing, infinite love. Infinite love and infinite connection. I really learned like everything that I've been forced in the past 12 years as an adept studying. I'm not a follower. I'm not a member of any religion. I'm not a secret member of any society. I have been independently finding out what I need to know for many years now. And the information that I have come back with, if you will respect it as not silliness, I'm going to be giving to you every Friday on the show, and I'm really excited to do that. We are all one in a very profound way. They say that you should do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, there's very good reasons for that if you understand that we are one. I am you, you are me. I may be in a different configuration than you at the time, but you are a mathematical configuration that will eventually become me, or I you, or vice versa, wherever you may be on the chain of the soul's development. My incarnation here on planet Earth is an incarnation you could use if you needed it to grow your soul in that way. There is a world of multi-dimensional consciousness that we are not currently privy to. And when you take a substance like marijuana or mushrooms or any of these psychedelic plants, which I have come to work with and realize that I've worked with for thousands of years on planet Earth, which is why I have such a easy relationship with them and get to learn so much from them, because I don't go to them for getting high. I go to them for spiritual growth and understanding. And I have turned to mushrooms now, many times. Mushrooms isn't the type of thing that you do a lot. A lot of people are getting to find the benefits of microdosing, which is really incredible and something worth looking into for yourself. You don't get high at all, but slowly but surely, the mushrooms can really help you to align your mind in a better way than it currently is being aligned in this terrible system of oppression that we are really in. So when I did these mushrooms, I broke on through to the other side in a lot of ways. And I felt through the dimensions my connection to all things. Shortly after this experience, I did another one of those aura readings where I was told by the lady Jamie that my aura looked like some of the spiritual masters who she worked with. I'm really going to try to limit talk about myself that well, it will seem grandiose, but I believe we're here to be authentic, and this is me doing so. She told me that my aura was very large, and I forget what color it was, but it wasn't anything particularly bad. I was going through like a positive cycle from this mushroom trip. I started getting my tattoos after that. I felt more in line with myself. I even passed it on to a great friend of mine who actually told me reluctantly, I didn't want to like it, and like I wanted to tell you that it wasn't for me, but you were right, Jesse. Because I told him, I said, this was an intellectual experience and it really helped me. And it was very positive for him. And it was very nice of him to admit that he was very against it. He was against having it be positive. I was sort of against having it be positive. I couldn't believe what it actually was. When the mushrooms kicked in, I was like, this is mushrooms? One, like, this is lovely. But it was lovely because of the profound change that it offered to my perspective. It was crazy. And I totally understood different things of like teenagers going some rite of passage from their family being given the mushrooms or the peyote or something like that. Because it was so changing, it was so life-changing for me. And really just kind of just got me on the path like this. And it made me go, the universe isn't what I think it is. The atheist in me said, no. What I just experienced was very real. It wasn't just, I was hallucinating, man. I was feeling layers of things, layers of reality that were there. I could feel them. And I could just tell, like, what I had been thinking for my whole life, what everything the American school system had taught me. I need to think again. And that was when everything changed. And I opened myself up. I was always very drawn to Native American culture. I hated what we did to them. I was like mortified learning in school like what we had done to the Native Americans. I was like, we did what? And then what? They seem so nice. As I said, oh Jesus. Another case of they seem so nice. So when it was a funny one that I started with, actually. I started with Bigfoot. I was like, I'm gonna go, because I was just trying to I could tell that ultimately this was going to lead me to a lot of very heavy places and heavy places of thought. Things that maybe I didn't want to know. But I pride myself on not being afraid of information and being open-minded to whatever the information is, because information is just information. It's like words. You say there's a bad word, but it's just a word. It comes to be felt. People feel ways about all sorts of things, but it starts out just a word, and it's what we put into it that makes it the N word or the F word or any of the words that anybody can talk about. So we got Lyle and the thing saying perception is key. It really is. So to say that this mushroom experience just like kind of blew my doors off in terms of like just the way I was thinking, what I was open to, is an understatement. But how quickly I realized what an idiot I had been and how much I was missing. Like, holy shit. I mean, there's just so much. Is Bigfoot real? Yeah, duh, Bigfoot's real. I was like, if Bigfoot is real, then the Native Americans would have names for him, right? Yeah, there's names for him. There's tons of freaking names for him. Every damn tribe has a name. Bigfoot is as real as they come. And like when you look into Bigfoot, the biggest thing that I realized when I was an arrogant atheist, when I was refusing a lot of personal anecdotes. It's like there's this notion that like just you can't rely on anybody's personal anecdotes. But I would say that's not true. I would say the biggest thing when it comes to personal anecdotes is to try to get as many as you can and to try to be open always. One of the biggest problems with conspiracy theories is that they like nail something down to the table and then people go, no, wrong, that's not it, because it's that easy. But when you just have conflicting ideas, conflicting information, stuff that's rotten, there's information in every freaking conspiracy from flat earth on down that like, well, that is interesting too. Why is that? Can we get an answer about that? That is a question. Can we ask that question instead of you denying the conspiracy theory, which is neither here nor there? This information that they can pull together, they're just trying to explain what this might mean. What the hell does this mean? Who knows? Tell us. That's really the case when it comes to these conspiracy theories. And that's ultimately, what I'm going to be giving to you when it comes to any of these things. I'm not going to get into, a lot of details about various things, because it doesn't matter. I don't know. I can't know. I can know that something is going on and that I don't trust various groups involved. I can know that I see a history of patterning in one way or another. Those are the things that, ultimately are all you need to know in order to make proper assessment of the thing. There's a lot of games like this. Like, you got to like boil it down to, do I have to worry about that or don't have to worry about that? Do I have to worry about that or don't have to? Yeah, I do. I have to worry about all those. I'm looking at those. I'm watching them. I'm watching Rock, and I'm watching the Rothschilds, and I'm watching the Rockefellers, and I'm watching the fucking banks, and I'm watching, like, because I'm like, I see what people are saying about you guys. Let's see what happens when I put in a Google search and I keep seeing your names, and what do I see is said, oh, nice, more information. I can follow these things. It's very easy to follow information if you want to. So around this time, or shortly after this time, my whole family ended up on the plant medicine path. My brothers Cody and Shane, my sister Shan, my mother Suzanne, all partook in ayahuasca and have worked with the plants to great benefit. I believe most of us in my family have been working with these plants for a long time, so they've been really reawakening certain aspects of our consciousness that we have worked with before for many, many years. There's a lot of people on planet Earth who have been here for a very long time, either sort of doing a sentence for having helped to bring the vibration of this planet down in one way or another, or getting in the way of the development of the consciousness on planet Earth, which is happening. And then there are a number who are literally here, they say in the Bible, like the 144,000 or whatever they are, who have come down to try to raise the vibration here. And for a lot of people like that, which ultimately I would include myself in, I've been here on this planet incarnating for a lot longer than that, though. And it can be a bitch. The place is very dense, and if you are very good-natured and kind of kind-hearted and sweet, sometimes it takes a really long time to learn what you're supposed to do to like make this place any better, other than like shrink away, which is usually what happens. And that's why the meek will inherit the earth. Because people who are really genuinely sweet, there's a certain switch in us that goes like, well, I don't want to be a bother. And you just try to shrink away because you want to be helpful, you want to be beneficial. with people around you. And then when you feel like you're not doing that anymore, you say, you know. But I mean, and that's generally why so many people commit suicide. You know, and I've connected with that feeling myself, dealing with the chronic pain. I went into it at 30, which was good. I was dating and doing all the different things that I was doing and starting to open my mind to what was wrong with me because, oh man, it came very fast. I had basically a renaissance from my mushroom experience of a few years where I got a lot of tattoos and I was having a really good life. And then shit hit the fan. I had a couple of fires and I lost like all of the stuff that was important to me. Me and my now ex-wife are separated, and I had sort of my big business thing that was going on. I was the voice of Kia Motors at the time. I was making a lot of money and I was investing in myself, but I hadn't like left a lot of money on the side. I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants, and when I lost my big job, everything just sort of went to a halt. And on top of that, I was freaking out. My body hurt so badly, and I used to play with my kids every day. Every day, I've been ignoring this pain like all my life, and then it got to the point where my body was just like, "You will listen to us," and it like just kicked up a notch, and it was so terrible. And the really terrible thing was it was killing me. And for those of you who are parents, like you really understand this, but my daughter was so used to playing with me every day. I'm always in a good mood. I try to be. And for her, I was always in a good mood. And then I was yelling at her, roaring at her, because I was like the lion with the pin in its paw. It was awful. It was so terrible to her, really. Before I like kind of like got like my mind together, because I was suffering, and I was just like, I don't know what the hell. Like, I don't know whether to get through my life like this. Like, this can't be my life. I was 30 years old. I'm 41 now. It's much better, but I've still been experiencing, a decent amount of comfort today. When I come in and I live stream and I do this show with this microphone, it's a little heavy for my back, and like just holding on like things that bother me a little bit. And I'm still working every day and meditating and doing yoga and all this stuff to guide all of this density that I've done out of my body. Now, when I went and I did ayahuasca, I did it in Los Angeles, and I found a shaman who was doing it nearby, and I mean, very similar to sort of my first time doing the mushrooms. Just a life-changing experience where I really opened my mind and relaxed into myself. And I learned a lot of things. Basically, I learned that when I got hit by this car and I did a lot of damage to myself, like I totaled an SUV as a little boy. I was 11 years old or whatever. She hit me on the side, and so she like dented in my left, like my leg or whatever. And then I flew up and I hit the windshield, and I compressed my head and shoulders and neck against the windshield. And I went, my mom's gonna be so mad at me. Like, I'm fine. Nobody's ever gonna find out about this. And Mother Ayahuasca made me, like, and people who go on ayahuasca will tell you, often they see her. Usually speaking, all of my teaching, they've taught me sort of like, I learned by energy. I can sort of like feel things and sense things. But she showed me a lot of things that night. And one of them was just how I had never acknowledged this injury. And then I had to go all the way back to it and sort of like, one, acknowledge that it had existed, forgive myself for getting injured, get rid of the different anxieties that I had built about telling my parents that I was injured. I mean, even just recently for me, I was realizing that like I had held on to all this pain as some sort of weird badge of honor in like society, like, that like people kind of give you the impression that just sort of earn things and you can't just have a nice life or whatever. It's like, it's gotta be hard, it's gotta be paid. And that's just an idea, It was an idea that I heard loud and clear and I kind of took on. And like for my family, like they were going through enough, money was tight, there was difficulty in the marriage. I was gonna not cause any additional problems. And this idea of like not wanting to cause any additional problems if you're somebody who's dead, you might end up taking on a lot of pain and stuff. Because you can really ignore a lot, and it's pretty amazing. I've come to like my willpower to like stay on task when I'm doing something that I like to do. I can just ignore anything, and then I'll come out of what I'm doing. I'll be like, oh my god, oof, my back or something. Oof, I'm like in so much pain right now. Like I don't understand. You know, I was in pain and I was just ignoring it. I was zipping through it. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people also will black out things, past traumas. And a lot of people are carrying different traumas from other lives. And that's something I realized that I was doing. This idea of taking on the burdens and being a burden to other people, not telling other people that I was hurt, kind of sort of needing them to like notice. It's weird. But that was what I ultimately came to. I was like, I needed people to sort of like be like, you are talented, and I would like to honor you by giving you a record contract. Are you in pain? It seems like you're uncomfortable. Is there anything that I can do to help you? And like, so that I could know that like it's okay. Because it was hard for me to ask for help. I like to ask help. I like to offer help. I have a very difficult time asking for help. And it's funny too, because like my nature is very giving and happy-go-lucky and friendly and kind, and so often people will mistake me. And actually, I don't really think it's so much mistaking. I think it's like dastardly people when like they come across me, they're like, I better fuck that guy up before he demonstrates that he's like genuine. But I am. I'm trying to be. That's my intention. And I'm here talking very earnestly about all these things. So, Bigfoot's real. I had a little bit of a hard time with the damn skinwalkers, which ultimately I've come to find over here too. And there was a lot of things that I had a little bit of a hard time coming to. And one of the big things was the Illuminati. Like I said, I've read, I read 1,000 books before I went. Hey, wait a second. It really seems to be like a system of like, because this stuff isn't possible to be happening just at random 1,000 times. Because there's so many industries that you could just do whistleblower books and stuff, and these books come and go, and most of these people end up dead. I mean, it's terrible. But if you follow along, there's so much to learn about all of these industries that are just fugazi, and you will see a consistent pattern. One of the things that I studied was I wanted to understand white supremacy, black supremacy, religious supremacy, and every single one of these motherfuckers was telling the exact same story with just like a different color coding on it. The white supremacist feels that there is a system of oppression that is in place that is holding them down. They're right. The black supremacist believes that there's a system of oppression in place that is holding them down. They're right. The religious supremacists believe there is a system of oppression in place that is holding them down. And they're fucking right. And there is fugazi information and weird, odd things that paint a slightly different picture of every single fact you've ever learned in your history book when you really look into them a little bit deeper. Albert Einstein had two ideas about his formula for reality, or whatever it might be. Multiple formulas as opposed to one that we're presented with in the books. But we actually find out when you read a little deeper into it, they had another formula that was actually a little closer to how things work. But meanwhile, they focused on this one that is not actually. But he already knew. But here, we were specifically being taught in school one of them, and the one that they chose is the one that's the wrong answer. Convenient, is it not? There's a lot of like that fun when you get out into this world. And it wasn't very long for me being in California before I was invited to play a concert at an Illuminati party, and then invited to join multiple times. And, basically I had to or I felt like at the time, but I had to keep it to myself. And I'm like, I'm here to destroy you motherfuckers. I'm like, fuck, like, because I was very much like, I don't know, you know, like, I'm a very honorable person. So I imagine honorable people all around me. And then, you know, you find there's less honorable people than maybe you hoped. And these groups, the system that they have in place, I mean, what they are teaching you guys in school, it's like, you know, they call us the useless eaters. And it's because we don't know shit about shit. They are keeping such important pieces of the puzzle of humanity from humanity's history and the power that we all hold within us and the fuckery that is going on at the top of everything in our financial system, in our law system. It is just like insane. It's the time has come to demystify so many of these things and break these things down. The biggest tools, you know, ultimately that I have learned over, you know, these decades and honed into a fine science is the Hermetic principles and essentially what you would call like Kabbalah's universal laws, or there's a lot of religions and cultures that have a very similar corresponding 12 laws that Kabbalah has. And Hermeticism kind of works right in that with it. My first 13 episodes are going to be breaking down each of these laws in real, you know, just like in detail. You know, a good friend of mine pointed out recently, he was like, that first sentence that you just said to me, you could talk about that one sentence for an hour, like, and you should, like, because for some people, some of these concepts are really difficult. But I want to talk about, you know, some of the basics of what the principles of Hermeticism and universal law will teach you. And the first one that I told you already is all is one. We are one thing. Everything, every molecule, every rock, every bird, every turtle. You don't want to hurt the turtle because you are the turtle. And if you hurt the turtle, on the other side of things, you, being everything, is going to go, look what I did. And you're going to feel yourself hurting the turtle. And you're going to be like, what a jerk I am for hurting this fucking turtle. How do I make it up to this turtle? You know, everybody has a mistaken idea of karma and judgment because you are all the things. So it's not God and you separate from each other, and God's like, you suck, you got to do this and this and this to make up for it. It's you and God going like, you know, like you downloading all the information that God has that is pertinent to you. And you go, oh, fuck, look what I did. I did this and I did this and I did this and I did this. Huh, I need to fix that. I need to make up for these things that I did. I did the wrong things. Not you being judged by people, you looking at your own life and going, look how I affected the other people. Look how that made them feel. You know, this is the basic reality that we're living under, the governing principle. It goes back and forth. Whatever you do to them, you're going to experience yourself. Just because you're divided from them and in a separate body right now on the other side of things, you're all the things, and you're going to feel whatever it is. So it just simply behooves us all to take care of one another and to create better community and better, you know, kindness and the way that we treat each other and to lift other people up. You know, so much of the things that we need to do are just sort of like necessary. They're necessary because of what we really are at the end of the day. And the other part of what we really are at the end of the day is a consciousness. Everything here in the room that I'm in and behind me, you know, this is all ideas. These are posters. They're on paper. These are drawings that somebody used a pencil to make. I can understand all those things, you know, looking at this intellectually. If I couldn't understand a lot of this stuff, a lot of the things being depicted in the pictures, I couldn't see them. We are a consciousness. When we come in as babies, they say that we're blinded, or I should say, they say that we're blind, and that we can't see certain things, and we slowly will like kind of focus in on our parents. That's not true. We're actually blinded. We are perceiving all of the realities, all of the dimensions, But slowly but surely, one that we're in physically, we tune into it. We tune into our mothers. We tune into our fathers. We tune in to this dimension. Children and animals can perceive all sorts of things that parents and human beings sometimes can't. Oftentimes, these imaginary friends aren't imaginary friends. They're actually like they're perceiving spirits or beings that are with them on some level. And eventually, because nobody else notices but them, they tune out of these things. They're no longer in tune with us. Now, for me, working with these plant substances, first the marijuana, which I would always use very holistically and spiritually, searching for guidance and information on how to heal very specifically because my body was causing me so much pain, and I didn't know I couldn't handle it, and it was like making me upset, and I was upset with myself as a father for a while. Like, I got it eventually under control, but it was a long time where I was just yelling all the time. I'm constantly telling my kids, "What do you mean yelling? I'm not yelling. Do you hear how loud I'm like?" But I was yelling for a while, and then they used to say that to me, and it was killing me. So, driven by a pursuit to learn how to heal, because it's not this black and white thing that we're shown. Now, there are two books that went around my family like wildfire, and I recommend them to all of you guys. And I'm going to give you guys homework every now and then on the show, and this would be the homework if you really want to understand more deeply and be an advocate for me in the comment section and say, no, I read the book too. It was really eye-opening. The first book's called Many Lives, Many Masters. This guy is a hypnotist. Say what you will about the hypnotist. Read the book. Read the book and then come back to me and talk to me about if you think that it has merit. My whole family thought it did. We were not, like my mom was like a Roman Catholic or something like that. And my dad was kind of raised Protestant, but his dad was Jewish and his mom was Catholic. And so, our religious background was kind of murky. So the idea of reincarnation, I think, was a little bit difficult for my whole family, but we all were blown away by Many Lives, Many Masters. It really just opened our eyes. It is a convincing book, is what I will say. And there was another book that taught us much more called The Field. I highly recommend that. The Field is a look at your aura, that thing that I got read, and the photography, the current photography, where I was depressed and she was on the money, and then she saw some things in my field the second time. I didn't get to dip around to that. And forgive me, guys, I'll get better and more concise with some of these things, and as I go through in the future. This is like, I'm a little nervous. I have to understand all of these things. These are like me revealing my spiritual journey for this time, and I'm eventually going to get to things that were really interesting and hard for me. And actually, perhaps I'll go to a couple of good stories. I told you that I had a second aura reading. In the aura reading, not only did she say that my aura looked like one of these spiritual masters that she would work with, but she said that I had these two big white lights on my left and my right that were my master guides. My guardian angel, and see Battle Cat for people who are that's my grandmother, or was my grandmother. Now it's one of the Killmaster apparently. And that's my best friend Crystalline, my muse. Apparently now that's Prince. I'll reveal that to you. And these spirits are working with me all the time in this position. And then I had 13 other lights above my head. There were all these other angels who were working with me. I didn't believe in any of this stuff at all. But I had just kind of begun to open myself up to things because of that mushroom trip that made me go, things are different than I thought, right? I go in to play with my little girl, and I go in front of Parker's face, and I lean over her, and she's on the ground, and I'm just giggling in her face and looking at her, and loving my child, and she starts looking above my head and laughing her ass off. And she is too young to be doing that. she's not in the smile and laugh stage yet. This is the first time this has ever happened. And I call my ex-wife Patty, and I'm like, Patty, come here. And like, because I'm like, do you see what's happening right now? And I'm like, wow. Like, he's like looking above your head. And this is crazy. This is the first time I've ever seen him laugh. This is the first time I've ever seen him smile. This is crazy. I think Patty probably even has a video of it on her phone. That I don't have. I have to get that from that bitch. I love Patty too. She's a good egg. But that was a real interesting one for me. And then I started, everybody in my family kept talking about my grandma. They were having all these interactions with ghosts and stuff. And I opened myself up to kind of talking to my grandma. And she started to come through really strong for me. And before I knew it, I did a dedicated meditation for 4 hours in my backyard one day. My kids were out of town. And I said, I'm going to go back there and I'm going to meditate until something happens to me. I was reading all these books about all these different gurus and stuff who meditate for whatever periods of time, and eventually something would happen to them. And ultimately, I wasn't having a lot of luck with my meditation in that regard. And I was sort of like getting fed up. And I'm like, I'm just going to go and I'm going to lay down until... And a crazy, crazy thing started to happen to me. I started vibrating. My whole body sort of like came in on itself because my injuries were blocking everything that was going on. And I ultimately came out of the experience begging them because I was in so much pain from this meditation. It was like uncomfortable. I was like, I'll come back tomorrow and I'll try again. Like, this is too much. I need to take a break. Because by the end of it, they were telling me to channel these guides. Like, I'm like, but like, I would, when I would get into deep meditation, I would hear very clear communication of like what to do or whatever it might be. And they were telling me pleasure is pain. I was trying to focus on pleasure is pain, but it just hurt. It took too long, I think, for them to like get that message through to me. And I had been like really uncomfortable for a really long time meditating, and I was exhausted. So I left the meditation and I came back the next day. And I came back the next day and I did it again. And this time when the pain came on, right from the beginning, I started doing the pleasure is pain thing. And I was able to transmute the pleasure through pain. And pleasure is pain. Remember what I said about heat and cold. It's not two things, it's one thing. It's a spectrum. It's sort of variations of feeling, right? So I transmuted this discomfort that I had in my body into pleasure, and like did huge things for my body that day in terms of like how tight I was and stiffness in my spine and all these things I've been going through. I felt much better afterwards. And even larger than that, I was in like this euphoric state afterwards. And I felt my best friend, Crystal Lee, who had died at the height of at the height of our friendship. Just an hour after he and I had really solidified things. He'd been my drummer for 2 years in a band I had called Blaze, that band on to be baptized by fire. And Chris was actually the reason why I agreed to smoke the marijuana from Cody so easy, because he had convinced me to do some brownies. He was like, he told me the same thing. Like, I think he could really benefit from this. And they were right. I did benefit from it. I had anxiety, and for me, it was a major fix and helped me to get through. And then from the mushrooms, I didn't know I was dealing with depression. It was a major fix to get. And the ayahuasca, really, Mother Ayahuasca literally guided me through how to take care of my body, how to acknowledge these things and start to actually really get to the foundations of what had been going wrong. Because ultimately, because of the nature of this mental reality that we're living in, there's no physical pain or physical injury without a mental to go with it. Okay? And ultimately, I can break this down subtly in a very simple question, which is, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Does anybody know? Does anybody know what came first, the chicken or the egg? It's a bit of a misleading question because they're not giving you the proper answer. But the proper answer is the idea for both. Idea comes before form. The Big Bang was first a mental Big Bang. a growth of consciousness from the nothing, which is what everything comes from, nothing. There was for eternity nothing. Then one day, basically, because nothing could only be nothing for so long, there was something. But something was a mental something. It wasn't a physical something. This is a solid wall. Solidity is an idea. Liquidity is an idea. Ideas are what our whole reality is made of. That's why spelling is such a devious sort of thing, because it splices everything up in our reality into all of these little bitty things and puts all of the power that they have into the words and language. But we are living in a mind. We're living in a collective consciousness. All of the ways that we feel are coming together to create a general consensus among various things. And a lot of ways that we feel, we've been feeling them for so long that there's momentum in how we feel. So even if those say, I don't feel that way anymore, or whatever, the world is like a runaway train. It has built up a certain amount of momentum for a lot of processes that it has to go through. You don't have to go through these processes in the same way. You can go through these processes more consciously, as I've been going through. For me, it has been a difficult but great journey of learning by often making mistakes. Ultimately, everything that we're learning is that there are no mistakes as long as we're learning. This is going to help you to take lemons and turn them into lemonade. Change your mind about the world that you're living in, because it can be a wonderful place if you let it be. When I came to on those mushrooms and felt all that gratitude, part of it was because I realized that all of the negative things I experienced in my life were essentially like little bullets that had been shot into me. But what they had shot into was an infinite love. And I was filled with infinite love. And these bullets were just this little bullshit, and this little bullshit, and this little bullshit, and this little bullshit. They were all relatively small and manageable and dwarfed by my infinite light, my infinite idealism, my infinite joy. We all have to go through our own dark night of the soul, to find our way back to loving ourselves and loving life and knowing who it is we're supposed to be here on planet Earth, because trust me when I say we're all meant to be our authentic selves. There are so many more of us on planet Earth who are the meek and the kind and the cool and the non-dogmatic and the reasonable, who need to come together to guide the rest of them. Most of them think that they're helping by being really dogmatic, very left or very right, and they don't realize that just a little bit of give and coming to the center, they don't realize that they're outnumbered, because we don't pull that shit. We don't do the thing where we're like, we're gonna gang up on them and force them to do that, because that's what meek people do. Like it's not so much that like we don't have anything to say, just like we feel like, well, you gotta let them be where they're at. But to a certain degree, the meek have to begin to open our mouths. We have to get it out. I still feel like I didn't shout enough about freaking Bryan Singer, who was raping boys in the entertainment industry. And I was hearing stories coming back to me of like these young actors and these people who were like getting raped by Bryan Singer. And he was getting all these movies. And I was just like, how is this, like, allegations have come out, different things. How are people still hiring this man and giving him positions of power to do this stuff? And the reality of the situation across the board, and I mean, this is what I'm hoping to inspire, is the next generation of leaders, because it's the good people who need to step up to the plate to lead this world forward to a beautiful future. The people who don't really want to be leaders. I don't really want to be a leader. I prefer, just helping, bringing things forward that people might like. I really like behind the scenes a little bit better. I happen to be good in front of the scenes, so I kind of end up being thrown into it my whole life. And it's been a little bit of a reluctant battle, but I'm told that my whole journey here on planet Earth is to become comfortable with myself, with who I am. They tell me that I'm supposed to reveal, you know, a little about, you know, my journey here. And, you know, when it comes to these past life issue things, you know, I don't want to ever get like too deep into these things, but past life experiences and connecting to your past can often be very major for you doing your own healing and connecting. There's a lot of different things that I had to connect to. Being shot in the back and different things like that that were partially causing my pain, causing the stress that I was putting myself under. Things that were invisible to me in this life because I didn't experience this life. For whatever reason, I'd come into this life with to carry and let go of, to transmute to something new. So ultimately, the reason why I can process as much information and do the things that I've needed to do in order to really get a good breath of what's going on here on planet Earth, and you know, without a lot of bias, is because I am perhaps there are a number of incarnations of my consciousness that are on planet Earth right now. Some of them I actually know. I'm sure plenty of them I do. But we are pretty unique. As it's been told me, there's a trifecta of souls. One is a very pure feminine energy. The other one's a very pure masculine energy. And the three of us were together in one soul in ancient Egypt, known as Ra. And I was told that this was masculine divine and this was the feminine divine, and that I was the building that they were sitting in, which is an odd thing to tell me. But it does make sense. You know, you need a carpenter to build a building, but you need an architect to make the building. And I've always been here trying to figure out the architecture, figure out how all of these things work. And in that field, you really get down to the roots of how everything works. Because what you find out in the field is that your energy field is just so paramount and clearly the most important thing that you have to be monitoring and maintaining. I do yoga and qigong and lots of meditating and whatever else, working on various energy blocks in my field. Getting the help of Reiki masters and things like that, for energetic blocks of whatever kind, to help you bring up some of these blockages that we've built, especially if you're older. If you're older, and the older you get, the more just time you've had to accumulate blocks that are very difficult for you to break out of, unless you really get into it and get to the bottom of things. And sometimes these things will be so difficult for you to look at, it'll take you ages to look at them. I realized that, like, the shame, I was trying to process my shame forever without ever looking at it, because I was so ashamed of the shame that I realized I'd never looked at it. I just was yeah, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. And I'm like, have you ever processed anything? Like, no. And one day I went through it in meditation, and it was a very, very major block for me. I was like, oh, okay. I understand what was in here. I mean, processing some of this loving myself thing. And now, I can't feel myself loving myself more. It is still very difficult for me to love myself. It's the thing that I wake up every day and I force myself to do, because I know it's the most important thing. Because I am you and you are me. And it's one of the main bits of distortion between all of us. My fear of you is a fear of me, is a fear of, you understand? We're all around basically triggering each other because we're uncomfortable. And we can all sense it. And we're all covering up our discomfort in different ways. I didn't even know I was uncomfortable until marijuana. I didn't know I was depressed until I did mushrooms. Oh my God. There it is. I understand. So, and other people can get to these places in all sorts of ways. You might go hiking and get this. You might get this from a hot spring. You get this from meditation. But you're going to have to go within to find this sort of information, and get this sort of information from the grid of planet Earth. The field shows that as soon as a sperm and an egg meet, it creates the energetic blueprint of what you will be as an adult. There it is, everything. It's not you as a fetus growing into the thing. It is the blueprint of what you will grow into It's right there, and it can be perceived with various bits of like, looking at it through Chromium technology or whatever, seeing what you will grow into. Every animal, there it is, the adult form of them, it's already there. This has been proven in a number of different experiments. But that's your aura. That is the architecture of who you are. That is the idea for the chicken and the egg. First you're going to be a chicken, and then you're going to be the egg. All the information of all the things that you will ever be, what you will eventually grow into, and that is what you're doing. You're growing in to the information in the field about who you are. So what are you? Your information. Here's the blueprint, and the building blocks of life are building you thus into the energetic field that you were plugged into the moment you were conceived. So every single thing is one thing, and every single thing is one big mind. This physical representation of the thing with solidity and liquidity, this is another dimension on top of a dimension that exists eternally, which is all just information. There is no death. The other side of things is quite nice. This is like the shitty place. Comparatively, it doesn't have to be that. And it's just the way that we've been taught to live, the way that we are being forced to live in lots of ways. The very small box that everybody has been putting us into. There's a natural nature that consciousness has to swing back and forth in polarity as it finds balance, which is, you can also describe that as God dancing with and discovering itself. Because of God's nature, which is, it was nothing, and it was nothing for an eternity for all intents and purposes, because time is, again, just a concept like solidity and liquidity. And then one day we had something. But within something, within every moment, is pause. And like that pause and that distance and that space and that emptiness can be amplified infinitely. You need nothing. You need pause in order to have continuity, in order to have time, in order to have space. So what is there? There's a fundamental back and forth between action and movement and energy and complete stillness, empty space. So this ultimately creates this push and pull energy that is, you can describe as a spiral, and you can describe it in a lot of different ways, but bringing us all sort of back and forth, which is why we have so much polarity. There's the left side of things, and it's so right. And right now they feel it so strongly, and there's always a new person coming to the left feeling extra strong about it, and then there's always a new person coming to the right feeling extra strong about it. I use the left, I'm on the right, I'm extra strong about it. But really the answer is always right up the middle. Oftentimes I will meditate and I will sort of picture a pathway up the middle where I'm not hitting the walls, I'm not going back and forth and back and forth. I'm just getting myself at equilibrium. So often, with any given thing, we'll learn like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that anymore. Not going to do that ever again. And then we go to not doing it ever again. We're like, I like to have it into my life. Maybe I can do it like a little, and like I do it like a little, but like it's a little too much. And then I'm like, I got to go back to not really doing it. But maybe I'll do it every night, like I do with like friends. And like I'm like, this is still not quite enough. And then like we eventually get to like the balance of it. I'm going to eat those Pop-Tarts, twice a week, whatever it might be. But there's like some balance that we will get to because we are coming around again to the thing, we're adjusting and adjusting and adjusting. And that's a concept that we'll talk about at length in some future episodes about correspondence and law of correspondence, as we'll repeat the same thing over again, but now in a new degree, slightly more excited or angry about it, or slightly more contemplative about it, more reasonable about it, lessening your energy about it, adding energy about it. All of the cycles that we are in are mental mathematics, shapes that our consciousness is taking to get us through and navigate everything. It's really kind of robotic, and there's like a part of us that's just like completely not Jesse, and like how I look, and it doesn't matter, I'm you and you're me, and like having to lose your self-esteem and your ego, like ego death they call that. I had that a long time ago. I remember feeling like what does it matter? And then as soon as I like accepted that it really didn't matter, they immediately came back and went, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter, and because it doesn't matter, it makes it matter that much more. I'm I was like, wow, kind of does, because like Jesse's only going to be here once, and might as well have Jesse, because then we'll be on to the other one, you know. So it is so important, these particular existences that we have, and us being authentic to ourselves, being our authentic mathematics. You know, for me, as this third of the spirit of Ra, with two of my friends, you know, who I won't name, but I have met these souls, and they have multiple incarnations of their soul. But I'm this weird one. I'm one that's like the architecture of the thing. And because of that, I have the ability to essentially bring Ra here, and be giving, you know, be channeling the information that he would give. Granted, we're channeling this through the device of Jesse Blaze Snider, and the device of Jesse Blaze Snider has really gone out of his way to learn about resonance and how to speak in a language that people can understand. So, you know, this is going to be a much more street level conversation about all these things, because I hate the idea that anybody would be locked away from the most important information that they could have, because we're talking about it in such highfalutin terms. So I'm going to beat a dead horse occasionally with some of these things and try to, you know, really, you know, talk about, you know, next episode, the first episode, we're going to just talk about all is one. I'm going to just talk about all the reasons why they don't want you to know that, and they don't want you to think that way. All the things that should change, and then different ways that we should be thinking idealistically, and different things that you know, have gone into the language and other things to try to prevent us from finding our way to these points. I'm an English major. English, man. You want to learn that English, and like you want to learn that there's a seat. Learn English really well, and like study the language and syntax, and like just really understand it. And at a certain point, you just go, they are doing dumb things on purpose. And, you know, finding out the why of why would they do that? And it all comes down to this mental reality that we're living in, all these spells and all these different things that we're talking about. You know, in future episodes, you know, I'm really going to be focusing on a topic at a time. And I think you guys will certainly get it. And I'm going to stick around after here and like sort of like acknowledge some of these questions and comments and things that I've gotten during the course of the show. For the first one, I've been wanting to do this for so long. At the same time, I feel like it's such a big responsibility. So much to talk about. There's so many things to explain. I'm always somebody who wants to like not breed confusion. You know, so if I feel like I said something, I'm like, oh, I should explain that. I should explain that. But it'll lead me to getting a little bit off track as I get a little bit more at peace with doing this and my role in doing this. Because you told me, my other side, the spirits have told me that it's time for me to do this. So here I am. Here I am doing this. Here I am trying to pass on this information to you guys. But I do consider it a great responsibility. And please trust that nothing that I'm saying here is anything that I take lightly. Anyway, my spiritual journey has been the hardest thing that I've ever embarked upon. It has literally faced me with all of my greatest fears. But coming through the other side of all my greatest fears, I'm so much better for it. Really. Like, I truly am better for having faced my fears. And I was so afraid of some of my fears that I literally would meditate on them. I would realize that I couldn't get over them, because I thought that if I got over them, God would challenge me in some new way that I wouldn't be able to handle. You know, if I get over jumping out of a plane, he's going to make me jump out of a plane tomorrow. I don't want to jump out of a plane tomorrow. I'm scared, right? But God and the other side of things, it's all working with you. And really, God is where I want to take it to, you know, because I think I'm going to label this as from an atheist to a theist, because that was the final journey for me, connecting to God specifically. And I know a lot of people have weird attitudes and thoughts about God, who God is. And at the beginning of the show, I said, you are God. And I really do believe that you are God. I'm welcome. And God is with us. But God is the excess of all the information that we don't need. We don't need all the information. For our lives and our existence, but there's only so much information we need. We're a part of God, and there are things, mighty things. I mean, like everything that we can access, we can access. I mean, if we put in the effort, we go find it. And I've learned this. You know, I will tell you, I don't feel as though there is anything that I don't know that I need to know. It's all coming to me, you know, at the times when I need it, and I'm very plugged in, and I understand, and I can basically explain anything that you might come across. And you know, a long time of a lot of work to get to that place. But at this point, yeah, you know, and you can be there too. There's this information is not, you know, only for these Freemasons, only for these skull and bones people and all this stuff. It's there. And you know, my journey to God in particular was slow. But as I told you, I respected the Native Americans. And after I opened up myself to talk to my grandmother, after I was haunted by the ghost of David Brocky, after I was talking to Chris regularly, you know, in that meditation that day when I finally broke through into that healing thing, I felt Chris there. And I turned to him and I said, Chris, I'm making the most beautiful music. I had been channeling music, incredible music. I couldn't even believe some of the things I was writing. I said, I wish you were here making music with me. And all of a sudden he was on top of me and he said, I am here, what was it? Making music with you. My hummingbird, my muse, he was there making music with me. And then I started talking to him. And then I would meditate and I started talking to elemental beings because I learned about what elementals were, which essentially they were mathematical representations of various things. And, you know, studying different thoughts of Native Americans. And I was talking to like the spirit of the birds. And the spirit of the birds was essentially just like sort of the overlay of all birds. And it was this mathematical representation of essentially what the shape of the birds was. So all of a sudden, it dawns on me. I'm getting out of the car, and I'm like, wait a second. So, mathematical shape of the birds is like the god of the birds. Wouldn't the mathematical shape of everything be God? And then I literally went, God? And immediately I was just pressed down with this amazing, gentle energy. And it went, yes, yes, God. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a God? And it went, yes. I went, ooh, like, are you like mad at me because I didn't believe in you? And he went, no, I understand why you didn't believe in me. It's okay. You've come to understand why I must be. And that was what I'm looking to understand why God must be. If we have all these just different governing systems of energy, I mean, just look at your body. You've got these cells that are being controlled, various systems in your body that are going, sending food. Like, are you doing anything? Are you making your skin collagen come out and like releasing chemical? I'm not doing any of that. I'm not even consciously breathing most of the time. I'm just automatically happening, right? So what is that? That's a consciousness, a lower consciousness, higher consciousness, me, going around, right? And the effect that I have on things, you can even like talk about that as like a higher consciousness. And then when you get into Native American culture, you talk about, okay, there's the oversoul of the thing, you know, the consciousness, the elemental consciousness of the birds, the spirit of the buffalo, whatever. So then what is there? There's an even fucking larger case than that. And it is God. And it's God because it has to be, because that's where we put the power. We put the power in the word God. And that's why we have to take back power of God and claiming ourselves as God. Because the infinite power of God, we put it in that word. We have to know, humbly, we're not God. And in knowing that we're supposed to be, ultimately, that we are, try to be as much as we think God might be as we can. And most of us, you know, have a general idea about that. But it comes down to empathy. Not to others as you would do it to you. But, hey God, hello God, nice to be nice to me. I'll be nice to you. Be nice. Hey, we're all be nice. Everybody be nice. You should be nice. We're all be nice. It would be nice if we were nice. Wouldn't it be nice if we were nice? I think it would be nice. Just saying. Anyway, you and I are all God creators on planet Earth. And if you hang out with me over the next bunch of weeks, I will show you how to use your mind to change your reality for once and for good, to change your life for once and for good, and to really get yourself rolling in the direction you want to be headed in, instead of like getting beat around all the bullshit that seems to be going on all the time. Anyway, I'm going to be doing this every Friday at 3:12 Pacific and Eastern, as well as every Wednesday, same time. I do Coolest Geek Alive. And then Sunday night, me and Aaron have our second show for the Coolest Geeks Alive, which is at 8 and 11 Pacific and Eastern. And then Monday night, All Your Favorite Bands Suck. So I hope you will join me for those shows. And I hope you will join me again next time. If you want to write an email, letter, I am Jesse Blaze at jessesnider.com. I love hearing from people. I'm also back on Facebook and Twitter again and all those things, so you guys can find me wherever I'm at. Anyway, I love you so much. Thank you so much for joining this show. And I'm sorry it was a little all over the place in terms of like telling this story and the story of me doing this. And I mean, there's so much to tell. So I mean, eventually, you know, you'll end up hearing all the different things about my crazy plant medicine shaman lifestyle that you know, that I have lived to really bring myself to a lot of knowledge and that I would like to pass on to you. So stick with me, my friends. I have a lot more information that you need to hear. Anyway, I love you, and I hope you'll join me next time for another episode of Everything They Don't Want You to Know. Stick around, and I'll do you guys questions and stuff in comments. All right, let's stick around, and I'll do. There it is. Okay, cool. So I can leave that like that. All right. So how's everybody doing? Thank you guys so much, Mr. Brian Burns. Yeah, I think we got it fixed later. Fortunately, just a stream like it's 50s. Yeah, no, you guys are the best. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it. We're going to talk about the Bolsheviks, Rothschild, Zionists, etc. Yeah, I mean, eventually, you know, for me, I don't want to alarm everybody, and so this is going to be like more of a what you need to know to sidestep this system. It's just, you know, ultimately for me, it's broken. It's broken, and we need to create our own systems, and we need to just all accept that it's broken and make something new. You know, just sitting around fucking letting them like, now why don't we, if we rejigger it like this? I'm like, no, like we literally need to like make new communities and make new sort of business practices like on the side of this system until we just topple it by doing things better than they fucking do it. Because it's not hard. It's not hard to do it better than they're doing it. They're doing it terribly on purpose. Yeah, attitude towards is everything. My family crest over here, the red scroll says positive mental attitude. Believe in that very much. Perception is key, yes. Oh, thank you so much, El Pasco. We really appreciate it. You know, everything that we're going to be talking about here on the stream is going to be like this, and I mean, really real stuff. And I'm going to try to, you know, get everything sort of a million different ways. Like really, like that's kind of my plan. It's like I'm just going to be talking about one thing over and over again. We're all one. We're all a mind. We got to get our minds right. There's a lot of different ways to bring that conversation about that I think will help everybody to really start to get their minds right. But it's a journey. It's a journey to do it. I mean, I just recently I pulled my head out of my ass about like, some things I didn't even know. I'm like, wow, it was like a whole new thing, you know. So because you don't know until you know, and you gotta remember that. You gotta remember there's so much to think about in this crazy fucking life. Anyway, oh, thank you, Julie Bright again. You're a wise lady. Takes one to know one. Leaping Games, thank you for being here. Chickens are theropod dinosaurs, so go dinosaur than eggs than chicken. Well, you could think of it like that, but I would think of it as it goes idea for all the things. Like really, like this. Here's the bonus piece of information. The Big Bang, like the way everybody thinks of it, the Big Bang and all the things going like all different directions, and like eventually one day they'll meet up and then they'll come back together and then more Big Bangs, right? That's exactly what happened on the other side of things first. Boom, the mind begins to think. Everything that it can think, it does. Every possible thought it could possibly have, it has. Then, from a place of complete and total understanding that is still developed as it just goes on infinitely, and it's infinitely transforming and gaining new perspectives and higher perspectives, and right, makes a physical thing. That's where we are. We're in the physical thing that was made after the thing that can think all of the things, already thought all of the things and knew all the things that there were to think. Then we made this thing. right? That's the key. This was made after the smartest freaking being that you could ever possibly fucking imagine came to life. The smartest thing that you could possibly imagine came to life, and it made this thing. That's what happened. That's what's going on. And you are a part of it. You are it. But that's it. Bang! Everything that I can possibly imagine. From perspective of everything I can possibly imagine, create thing. Now I've made the thing. So everything here is purposeful. Nothing is an accident. It seems so. You know, God has forsaken us and all these things. But it's all just these very complex mechanisms that, from the right perspective, make total sense. And, you know, you can understand the merit of them. But from the wrong perspective, it just seems like loss and life and death and all these things. But there's always a reason for everything. Anyway, thanks so much, guys, for coming down and hanging out with me. I appreciate it. I hope you'll hang out with me again for this show next Friday. I'm going to do it again, same time, same channel. Be a little bit of a shorter thing, but I just wanted to like try to get out all of my main journey, who I was from atheist to theist. Anyway, I love you guys. Thanks so much for joining me. Good night.